Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Gaming Realms, the Realm of Horror, with your creator and host, Mr. Dixon, logging on. In this episode, I'm going to take you back on an episode I did 2 years ago in 2017 around this time, as a Halloween special, with a few new updates on the game called The Castles of Dr. Creep. Please do enjoy. The Castles of Dr. Creep is a platforming puzzle game that was designed by Ed Hobbs, and it was exclusively released on the Commodore 64 home computer in 1984, published by Broderbund. Castles of Dr. Creep was re-released digitally through Steam, Windows, OS X, and Linux in September of 2016, at the price point of $2.99. Well, actually on Steam when I bought the game, it was $1.99. So cheaper, the better. It was recently through the recommendations on Steam that I discovered this game. And since it's an actual retro game and Halloween is around the corner, I decided to give it a try. Now let's examine the cover art on the Commodore 64. The detailed artwork on the cover is quite eerie to look at. With this type of font, a rat holding a key from the cell window, with a chilling atmosphere of a full moon, with bats flying out of a dark, awesome-looking castle. Whoever designed this artwork is a true genius. And on the cover it also says it's a two-player game, a two-player cooperative game, which makes the game better if anybody wants to play it with you. Now that's what I call Master of Art indeed. Now there's a lot of these old computer games from that era that still holds up to this day. Let's just see how the Castles of Dr. Creep holds up. Let's try not to get scared now. After you start up the game, you see the title screen with a long mountain climb to Dr. Creep's castle, and according to the title menu, the castle is for sale. Well, if the title says The Castle of Dr. Creeps, meaning Dr. Creeps owns more than one castle. And in this image, all I can see is one. Is the title misleading? Or are they just showing one castle in that image? I meant the Castles of Dr. Creep, not the Castle of Dr. Creeps. It's the Castles of Dr. Creep. Well, when you start the game, you have a choice of 13 castles to choose from, plus the tutorial mode. So, since it's shown one castle on the title menu, then which castle is for sale? Can it be all 13 in one? In fact, it is all in one. I bought all these castles from Dr. Creep in 8-bit on Steam for $2. Let's take a closer look at the titles of these 13 castles, after pressing F1 key to get to the menu. Oh, since we're at the title menu, you can load a saved game, view best times, and there's an option to have unlimited lives. Now that's smart thinking there to have that option. Otherwise, if there's no unlimited lives option, or if you have the unlimited lives option turned off, then it's 3 lives. And if you lose all 3, then it's game over. Very awesome idea to have that unlimited lives option. I wish that would apply for all retro games back then. Now let's examine some of the titles more closely. Baskerville, meaning Hugo Baskerville's estate is now a castle. where rumor has it that the estate is cursed with a terrorizing hound. Unless if you're Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, watch out for the grip and mire, and mainly, if by all means, if the myth is true, then watch out for the hound. Lovecraft. Dr. Creep owns a castle on Howard Philip Lovecraft. What or who can we expect? Dr. Herbert West? The Cthulhu cult? The Dunwich Horror? If that would have been the case, that would have been freaking awesome. Fredonia and Sylvania. Two fictional countries from Marx Brothers Duck Soup. If that's the case, I would love to shake the hand of Fredonia's Rufus T. Firefly and give a good old slap into that upstart ambassador of Sylvania, who immediately surrendered to the Fredonia after the war he declared. Serves her right, Ambassador Tordino. All the joking about the references aside, let's enter the castles of Dr. Creep and see if these stories even exist inside these castles. When playing castles at Dr. Creep, the best thing to do is go through a tutorial mission first, because you never know what kind of death traps or hostiles that you will encounter. Yeah, doing a little speed run through the castles. Castles of Dr. Creep is one of those early 80s graphical limitation games. I know I said a few minutes ago that was an 8-bit game. I was actually referring to the game being on an 8-bit home computer. But Castles of Dr. Creep looks more like an Atari 2600 game than it does an 8-bit game that you see on the NES. Which, I'm not complaining about the graphics, that's the way it was back then. But at least the game does have music during the intro of a selected castle, and it's quite fitting to the game. But the bad thing about that is that the music is absent during the gameplay, and that sucks because that's the type of music I would like to listen to while playing the game. And the sound effects is also amazing. It's pretty much the same sound effects what you hear in the Atari game. And the controls are very simple. Castles of Dr. Creep does have interesting challenges with side-scrolling and puzzling. But with the age of the game, with many objects you gotta deal with before you complete a stage, can be tiresome. Castles of Dr. Creeps is an interesting game, but it gets boring and repetitive really fast. All you're doing for the game is putting up with various contraptions like lighting machines, conveyor belts, force fields, trapdoors, laser guns that track your every movement, in front of you or behind you, better behind it than in front of it. But the cool thing about the laser gun, there's also a switch where you can use it for your defense. And you will be doing quite a bit of backtracking from room to room, climbing up and down ladders, climbing down poles to find switches for those contraptions, back and forth and etc. And it can become a pain, because the biggest drawback of the game is that your character doesn't always move fast enough. The next thing is, of course, what do you expect to need and find in castles for doors is keys. And you have to have the right color key to open the right color door. And after you hit the switch to turn off a force field, make sure you enter through it right away before it switches itself back on. Danger! High voltage! These lighting machines are dangerous if they're turned on and if you're dumb enough to walk into them and get electrocuted. But the good thing about them when they're turned on is that they can kill hostiles as well. These conveyor belts have three options. Either turn on for the left or turn on for the right, or just turn them off.
I would turn them off for the most part, but the left and right switches does come in handy against enemies. You can't fall off a cliff in this game, and you can't walk into an open trapdoor. But if you're standing on a closed trapdoor, and if a monster or yourself flips the switch, you can fall out from under it and die. The trapdoor also works on enemies. There's also teleportation in the game, but you have to make sure the device is set at the right color, so you can teleport to the right color dotted area. Every time when you die, regardless what you die from, you fade away. If you're trapped in some area where you're stuck, you can press the escape key to forfeit one of your lives. But if you have the unlimited lives option turned on, then what difference does it make if you forfeit one of your lives or not? Like I said, it's a good thing to have an unlimited lives option, because that's definitely needed for this game, especially if you're a beginner. According to the manual, the only enemies you will encounter is mummies and Frankenstein monsters. That pretty much says the names of the castles, such as Lovecraft, doesn't have anything to do with the stories that the castles are named after. Because I don't see any Lovecraft references, or references to the other names. So I'm guessing Ed Hobbs just named these castles from what he was inspired by. The Castles of Dr. Creep is still a good game. It's just dated and it gets boring. But I still think the game was quite creative for its time. And it's even better now since the game is on Steam for the asking price of $2. And that's a fair deal to me. Plus there's even Steam achievements to unlock. So I still say that the Castles of Dr. Creep can be a boring game when comparing it to modern gaming standards. But Castles of Dr. Creep is an example of a curious piece of history. Especially one I never heard of before, until I discovered the game lately. And I would say the game for a $2 price point is recommendable. And since Castles of Dr. Creep has a 2-player co-op option, you're more better off playing the game with a friend. So player 1 can take care of contraptions on one end, and player 2 can take care of contraptions on the opposite end. Teamwork makes a lot of sense. This is Dixon of the Ultimate Gaming Realm, leaving the Castles of Dr. Creep and logging off. And happy Halloween!